Good day, folks. This is geopolitics again. Three major events. India's attempt to jump into the process of Afghanistan by holding the NSA meet here. As per the playbook, we expected Pakistan did not come, and of course, China opened its cards by not coming either, right? And while they were attending the same thing in Pakistan. So other is the anointment of Xi as the perennial permanent king of China. Now, this could be trouble or not trouble. I mean, people in India actually think this probably all this agro business all across our borders was just to ensure that this anointment happened. Now that it's happened, they'll pull back. I think nothing could be further from the truth, because China has seen our weakness, because we are willing to pander to them. They're gonna go after us, so better watch it. But big one was Afghanistan. Now let's talk about this. Decoding Taliban 3.0 by Anju Gupta. And this is something very critical to understand. He says the international powers were pragmatically optimistic that Taliban 2.0 would run an inclusive government based on moderate policies. However, Taliban 3.0 has surfaced as an interim government with a hardline approach. Recent events show that apparently sidelined Taliban 2.0 is again being used for diplomatic outreach. Mysterious killings, numerous attacks on Taliban soldiers, and suicide attacks on mosques in Kabul, Kunduz, and Kandahar have shattered the myth that Taliban rule could ensure peace and security. Coupled with opaqueness and a humanitarian crisis, Afghanistan poses a graver danger to the world than it did in August. It surely does. In the end, it succeeds in destroying Afghan forces and putting in place Taliban rule, that's Pakistan. Pakistan has also ensured that the Taliban leadership remains controllable. Thus, with an unassuming PM, the Doha Taliban reduced in stature and power. The Pakistan-backed Haqqani network and Mullah Yaqub, Mullah Omar San, raised by and in Pakistan, have taken control of all key positions. The AUM Haibullah Akuzunda has not surfaced from his last seen location at a Quetta mosque. Taliban 3.0 has distanced itself from assurances given by the Doha Taliban through its actions. Non-inclusivity, women's dispowerment, parading suicide bombers as legitimate weapons, public felicitation of families of suicide bombers by Sirajuddin at attacks on Hazras. Pakistan has come out openly to support Taliban 3.0 with airstrikes in Panjshir. It's fund Taliban or face chaos rhetoric in international fora, and doing its best to rope in China to fill Taliban coffers. Taliban actors are surely not in control of the security situation. Cleverly, instead of the AQ's footprint, the quick fix public discourse is being diverted to Islamic State Khorasan province as the principal threat emerging from Afghanistan. And here's the trick, and the Americans are conveniently buying into it, right? Afghanistan, when the NSAs met, this is the meet. In a sign of its assured diplomacy, New Delhi is sending out a clear signal on its stakes and interests. Convening a meeting of the national security of Russia, China, Central Asian countries, Iran, Pakistan, and Afghanistan on November 10 reflects a more assured Indian diplomacy. This initiative is intended to affirm India's legitimate stakes in Afghanistan's future. With forthcoming NSA level meeting, India is underlining the importance of its own and shared security stakes in the unfolding scenario in Afghanistan. The belief in a reformed Taliban, the promises of an inclusive government, cap on terrorism, and respecting the rights of women, minorities, and children has proved illusory. The country is in chaos with severe economic distress. The Central Asian countries are increasingly perturbed. There is consensus, and this includes Russia and China. The Taliban must honor its promises before receiving recognition. Providing humanitarian assistance to the Afghan population and preventing refugee flows outwards has become priority issue. Against this background, India's initiative has come at the right time. Russia and Iran, and remarkably all of Central Asian states, even non-neighbors of Afghanistan such as Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan, have accepted New Delhi's invitation. India's successful initiative is a setback to Pakistan, whose NSA called India a peace spoiler. China must put in an awkward position by Pakistan's rejection has so far not confirmed its virtual attendance. If it takes part, it will be isolating Pakistan, exposing a sensitive gap in their regional diplomacy. If it does not, it will be bandwagoning with Pakistan and revealing more openly an intention to develop an anti-India, China-Pakistan nexus in Afghanistan. Folks, that is what China has done. Beware and be prepared. So, based on what I just said, here are one of the things that have been happening. Taliban foot soldiers unleash reign of terror with extrajudicial public killing. Taliban appoint new envoy to Pakistan. And what is this Troika plus meeting? Afghanistan at the brink of economic collapse, says Pakistan, and that's what it keeps doing. But when it's doing that, why would it sit on Pakistan, sits on India request to let trucks take its wheat to Afghanistan? Why the hell would it do that? Let this get to the people of Afghanistan. Welcome, and what does Taliban say? Welcome Indian aid, will give diplomat security, says Taliban. If you welcome that aid, then convince your buddies Pakistan to let the trucks through, right? Want good diplomatic ties with India, says Taliban, but Taliban's hardly in control. Russia, Iran, Central Asia, Asian NSAs will attend Delhi meet on Kabul, won't attend meet in India on Afghanistan, Pakistan NSA. That was to be expected. China, also to be expected. China skips India talks on Afghanistan to attend Pakistan meet. Okay. Russia backs India's Afghanistan meet efforts as Pak's China dither. Afghan talks won't go to India next week, says Pak NSA. Afghanistan's situation is high on agenda, on everybody's agenda, including Russia. India, 7 countries call for inclusive government in Afghanistan. Afghan situation, some vocal, others careful. The guys who are careful, essentially, you got it. Russia, after Delhi declaration, Russia issues own statement with tweaks to be expected. Troika plus meeting, Taliban urged to cut ties with terror outfits. Not happening. They've just now created this Khorasan and kind of whitewashed Al-Qaeda. Well, actually, Al-Qaeda is what's there. NSA to discuss spread of terror, radical ideology from Afghan. So I think this is a big trick that rabbit that Dole has pulled out of its hat after having been left on the side after Afghanistan's withdrawal. But it's a big one. Rising terror threats from Afghanistan worry India and Tajikistan, and maybe now Tajikistan and all these other nations will allow us to create an air corridor for delivery of aid. Dole meets Tajik Uzbek counterparts a day before regional talks in Afghanistan. Dole reviews Afghanistan issues with Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, NSAs. Can't attend the Afghan meeting. Says this is what China had to say. Modi Johnson agree on to cooperate on AFPAC. This was on the sidelines of the COP2. Allow unimpeded aid to Afghanistan, says NSA's in Delhi declaration. UNICEF to directly fund Afghan teachers, bypass Taliban authorities. That's what's happening, right? And Putin expected to arrive on December 6th for annual summit. And high on the agenda has to be the Afghanistan issue for India. India concerned about situation in Afghanistan, says Pentagon. If only if Trump had listened earlier. 25 killed, 50 injured as blasts and gunfire hit Kabul hospital. China tells Taliban to crack down on ETIM. That's all China is concerned about. Bomb targets Taliban, kills 2 in ISK hub. At least 25 killed in Kabul assault. Taliban push to unlock Afghan billions abroad. That ain't happening with any ease. Taliban eager for dialogue with world, says China. Russia tells Afghan neighbor to say no to US NATO presence. Well, they can keep pushing them to say no, but it ain't working, right? It's not going to work for them. Failure to recognize Afghanistan government could have global effects, warns Taliban. A direct threat, folks, of terror in the world. Imran dials Xi, both leaders urge world to send aid to Afghanistan. They are in a hole, both of them, especially the Imran Khan. And Afghanistan, the path ahead. He says, Wednesday's meeting was attended by the security czars of Iran, Russia, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan, all countries with huge stakes in the stability of Afghanistan. It would appear the outcomes of the Delhi Regional Security Dialogue exceeded India's expectation, as there was a great degree of convergence in assessment made by the 8 countries about the threats and challenges emanating from Afghanistan. That Iran, Russia, which have engaged with Taliban since the group swept to power in August, signed off on the declaration is significant. India will have to take the lead in finding ways to rush humanitarian assistance to Afghanistan people, including the possible shipment of aid via the Central Asian states to get over the hurdle of Pakistan blocking the movement of relief materials through its territory. This is an ideal time to build a beachhead, just like we did during tsunami in the islands around us. Beachhead for delivery of aid to northern Afghanistan through the Central Asian nations, folks. Cheers. So the exit of the United States from Afghanistan and from West Asia has kind of left an opportunity that, India can dive right into, as has the Abrahamic Accords and the new US new Quad, that meeting that all of us held between the United States, Israel, India, and the UAE. But Kabul continues to be the game. How to play the Kabul game, raised Jayant Prasad. India must explore non-Pak routes to send aid to Afghan and give them visas. Meanwhile, Pakistan faces a blowback. Its polity has been pushed towards increased radicalism. The Pakistan government and the Tehrik-i-Taliban Pakistan have agreed to a truce mediated by the Haqqani network. Other banned Islamist groups are now clamoring for similar amnesty. So the Haqqani group has taken control of the Taliban in Kabul, which is having a lot of problems for everybody. India can bridge the Gulf on Afghanistan, writes Harsh Pant. He writes, in Afghanistan, winter is coming. Almost 3 months after the Taliban dramatically seized power, governance remains at a standstill. There is a humanitarian crisis due to hunger and famine. So where is good old China and Xi? Those who wanted to play the new great game, that's China again and Pakistan, over the dead bodies of ordinary Afghans, are still counting the consequences of the spillover effects of the rapidly deteriorating security situation. There have been no victors in this appalling dynamic despite initial chest thumping in some regional capitals. The United States may have the luxury of moving on, but regional players have to come to terms with the new realities of a highly volatile regional milieu. India is clearly signaling that it has no intention of giving up its role as a key interlocutor on the issue. This is after the meeting in Gaul. India's regional outreach has been welcomed by key stakeholders. Russia, Iran, and all the Central Asian nations are participating in the dialogue, thereby acknowledging that India has legitimate interest and leadership on this vital issue. Okay. As the political geography of Afghanistan shifted from Central Asia to South Asia, Kabul's role as a link between the two regions is largely predicated on the strength of India-Afghanistan ties, not on Pakistan, that itself is becoming marginal to the economic reimagining of the region. And while the West can afford to move out of Afghanistan, India will have to work with its regional partners in finding a long-term solution. It is in this context that India's decision to take a leadership role on Afghanistan is a welcome change from its historical reticence. Absolutely is. Hosting the regional security dialogue is a welcome move. Even though it is unlikely to yield any immediate results, it will allow India to shape the strategic conversation in the region and underline its priorities. The Afghanistan challenge is a long-term one, and it will require sustained leadership as well as strategic patience. So the chest thumping in Beijing, Putin, and Imran, dead and done. In Asia, a new overarching order written by Mohammed Soleiman. With Indo-Abrahamic bloc, the US can pivot to East Asia without leaving a vacuum in West Asia. Critical India. The Indo-Abrahamic Accord has the potential to transform the regional geopolitics and geoeconomics and finally allow Washington to do more with less in the region. Such a partnership linking the Indo-Abrahamic bloc with the US Indo-Pacific strategy shores up an overarching Asian order. Overarching. And what does Sri Raja Mohan write? The Eurasian opportunity, greater strategic activism, recalibration of Delhi's continental strategy promises to open up possibilities in the region. This week's consultations in Delhi on the crisis in Afghanistan among the region's top security policymakers following the US withdrawal is part of a developing Eurasian strategy. After years of self-doubt, Delhi has clinched the internal debate on Indo-Pacific and started this new debate. India's Eurasian policy must necessarily involve greater engagement with both the European Union and NATO. A dedicated military office in the Indian missions to Brussels, where both EU and NATO are headquartered, will be a crucial step towards a sustained security dialogue. Second is to intensify the dialogue on Eurasian security with Russia. Third is the substantive Indian collaboration with both Persia and Arabia. The current flux in Eurasian geopolitics will lessen some of the current contradictions and generate some new antinomies in the days ahead. But the key for India lies in great strategic activism that opens opportunities in all directions in Eurasia. So Iraq becomes critical. Iraq PM survives drone hit on home. Iraq invites Indian companies tea festival. India slams the attack. US bomber flies over West Asia amid Iran tension. This is a critical area for India. India seeks Iran's help to curb influx of drugs via its ports. Iran. But Iran's here too. Anti-Taliban leaders Ahmad Massoud visits Iran to stitch alliance. India should be part of that. Uzbekistan to push for connectivity plan through Chabahar. Iran again is part of it. But India is part of almost every dialogue now, folks. Jai Hind.